everybody, welcome to Video Club Reviews. Today we're reviewing Last Night in Soho. Came out this year, directed by Edgar Wright, starring Thomasin McKenzie, Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, Diana Rigg, who played Olenna Tyrell in Game of Thrones. Surprisingly, a horror movie, which I wasn't expecting. An aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. However, the glamour is not all it appears to be, and dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. Jim, what did you think?
No
spoilers.
How to not bury the lead here. I loved this movie. I thought this movie was amazing. I very much like all Edgar Wright movies. I think Edgar Wright movies just ooze style. It's what he's known for, obviously. Baby Driver and all of his previous outings. He just has like a certain way about shooting his movies and scoring them that's just unreal. And this movie was exactly what you'd expect from an Edgar Wright movie. It was shot amazingly. But yeah, it was really good. I didn't know very much about this at all. Like, I saw the trailer, and the trailer does hint that it's got like a horror aspect to it and a bit of a kind of like mystery to it. But it's definitely a little more horror than I thought it would be. I would say the back half of the movie is horror. The first half of the movie is kind of like suspenseful thriller. But yeah, I liked it a lot. The acting in this movie was so good. The reason we were talking about Old earlier is because I just recently watched M. Night Shyamalan's Old, and Thomasin McKenzie was in it. So when I was watching this, I was like, I know her from somewhere. So I had to look it up. And Old, while I'm an unabashed M. Night Shyamalan fan, even though he makes terribly written movies, I still like them. I did not think Thomasin McKenzie was a very good actor after watching this because of the dialogue in that movie. But she kills it in this movie. And then I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. She is one of my favorite actors currently working. Queen's Gambit and New Mutants and a bunch of other things. She's really, really good. So yeah, the cast was great. The way it was shot was great. The music scoring was ridiculously good. I loved the music in it. I love the aesthetic. There's scenes that take place in current day and scenes that take place in the 60s. And it just is unreal. And it has so many interesting nods to pop culture and things like that, especially things from the 60s time period. So Edgar Wright is obsessed with the 60s. He like, even though he was born in 1974, he grew up being obsessed with the 60s. So all of the music and style and movies and stuff like that from the 60s are things he's obsessed with. So he has so many little kind of neat things hidden in here. Lots of references to James Bond, which he puts in almost all of his movies. He has James Bond actors or actresses in the majority of his films that he's made so far, even just in cameo roles. So Margaret Nolan was in this. She's a barkeeper. I won't give anything away, but basically she was the Bond girl in Goldfinger. And the drink, the Vesper, is ordered in this as well, which is a James Bond made drink. So
from Casino Royale, yeah,
very cool. It was a very cool movie. I would highly recommend this. It's not. I didn't find it to be on the nose. Like, I didn't see what was coming with the twist and the twists and turns the movie has and the mystery of it. I wasn't able to like really tell for the most part what was happening. Definitely a little bit scary. So if you're not into jump scares, and I wouldn't call it outright horror. Like, it's not just a nonstop horror movie, but there is horror elements to it, and there are some scenes that do have some jump scares if that's something that turns you off. But yeah, I really like this movie. I would give it a 9 out of 10. It was one of my probably top 5 of 2021.
Wow.
Rob, what did you think? I'm dying to know.
I knew nothing really about this other than I saw 1 or 2 trailers before, and it was very stylized. I was like, oh, cool, this kind of looks interesting. But it started off, I was kind of like, okay, this is not what... I didn't know what I was expecting. And then I started off, I was like, okay, I'm sort of on board, sort of not on board. To what Jim said, it's a beautiful looking... The aesthetic, the style, the music is fantastic. And all the actors in this movie are really, really good. Like, I didn't feel one role that I felt was like, that was weak. Like, everybody's character was other than that, yeah, it starts to change gears. It changes gears a couple of times in the movie, and for tempo and what it feels like, the atmosphere changes. It starts off really cool, and then it gets pretty intense, and then it kind of feels like a bit of a horror. And yeah, it's a good movie. I liked it. I didn't know what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised with it.
Would you rate it?
For me, I'd rate it like 6.5, 7.
Okay.
kind of range. So kind of where everybody's, if that makes sense with IMDb's rating or whatever it is. But it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't disappointed. I didn't feel like I wasted time watching, that's for sure.
The critic score on IMDb is 75, but the audience rating is 90%.
Okay. So maybe I'm a little bit more
same with
critical.
Rotten Tomatoes as well. 60, 75 on critic score and 90, I think 91 on audience.
Yeah, I'm actually pleasantly surprised, Rob, to hear that because I was like, oh no, he's gonna hate it.
No, it kind of at first I was like leaning into like, okay, well, and then it just wasn't clicking for me. And then the whole feel of the movie changed, and then the style came in. And what's the actress's name? Is
Which one, the
Thomas
lead?
Rita? Rita? Oh, Ellie.
Rita?
Eloise is played by Thomasin McKenzie.
Yeah, Thomas McKenzie, absolutely fantastic.
Well, it's cool because like you have
She's
no
just
idea what's
so strong.
you don't know what's going on for like the first 30 minutes of the movie, right? You're just like, what is happening? And I really liked like even just for the first 10 minutes, I was trying to guess like what decade it was sent in, and I'm like, oh, it's like late 60s or like maybe even late 70s because you like she's got like a record player in her room and all this old music that she listens to. And it wasn't until I saw the Beats headphone, I'm like, oh, okay, it's like a modern thing.
Yeah,
it's just what a girl who's obsessed with a time period. And then she gets to visit that time period, and it's not necessarily all that it was. She thought it was cracked up to be.
Yeah, it's basically like a commentary
we'll get into it.
A commentary on romanticizing like past decades and the dangers of that, especially for women. And a really cool thing about this movie, it's Edgar Wright's first movie with a female protagonist. So that's awesome. I loved it so much. I love Edgar Wright. Jim, what did you say?
I said 9 out of, I said a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. 9 out of 10. Like not without its issues, but overall, awesome movie to watch. I'd recommend it to any sort of horror fan, Edgar Wright fan.
Mm-hmm. I almost feel like we should need to start giving movies ratings out of 100 because the out of 10 score is so limiting. But anyways,
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, now we'll get into spoilers. So spoiler stuff. So I do have a bunch of notes here. A lot of them we kind of already touched on the spoiler-free part. But yeah, the Edgar Wright stuff, just so cool, man. Like I don't know if you guys saw Baby Driver or not. Like the movie itself was not groundbreaking by any means, but it was just so neat how it was shot with the music in mind.
Just different perspectives.
This had the same kind of vibes. Whenever there was music playing in the background, it had that same feel, and it like all the music choices he made you like feel an emotion that was you could tell was like completely meant for that scene. Like there was times where you felt happy and uplifted, and other times where there was like a sense of dread, and other times where there was a sense of awe. Like the downtown, she's singing downtown. It's like, oh, you're awe inspired, but then it's like she almost has like a kind of a creepy take on it. The way she like sings it is almost like just a little helter-skeltery. Set pieces were good. The mystery was good. So basically she starts out, she gets into a fashion school. It's unclear if it was like a scholarship or whatever, but they allude to that she's living with her grandma, and you find out that her mom and dad aren't in the picture. She does comment later on that her dad is gone. You don't find out at all why or where. So I'm curious to know what that's about. The mom, you find out she killed herself, and it sounds like the mom had, I guess, like a history of schizophrenia or something like that, I guess is what they allude to. But you don't find out, you also find out that she's like been seeing visions of or is visited by her deceased mother. And so you'd wonder, does she have schizophrenia or is it something a little more supernatural, right? And they allude to that really early on, like in the first scene, basically. And you're like, oh, okay. But then
she gets feelings. I think they describe it as like she gets a sense of feelings.
But one of the things I thought was missing is I would have loved to have seen that explored a little bit deeper. Like no flashbacks about like anything when she was a kid and then when those things were happening. Like, is it something where she was seeing ghosts? Is it something where just she thought her mom was like, her mom died, and because of the trauma of that, she thought that her mom was with her as like an imaginary best friend kind of thing, or what, right? Like it.
So yeah, in the first scene, you see her mom in the mirror, and she kind of interacts with her. So either she's schizophrenic or she sees ghosts. And I kind of took it as like her mom has the same gift too, and maybe her mom saw ghosts and didn't know how to deal with it, or thought she was schizophrenic, and killed herself.
Yeah, and that's what we think schizophrenia is, or that's a form.
Well, that's what I also thought. The same thing as well, Tiffany. Like she could feel and sense all the stuff that went to London, and London being what it was, and we'll discuss it being just so overwhelming for her.
Triggered everything.
Well, they keep talking about how it's overwhelming, and then there's a comment about there's not a room in London where somebody hasn't died. There's not a street corner in London where somebody hasn't died. And you're like, oh, okay, I see where they're going with this. Yeah, that's
so they lean on that like supernatural aspect. But I like the fact that they don't flash back and give you a hint. Like, so you're never quite knowing is she breaking down mentally, or is this real, or is it a combination of both? And they just let it play out. So I kind of like the fact that
when I say a flashback, though, I was kind of wanting to see one like later in the movie, like near the end of the movie. Go back to give it context, but not early on. So you still have the mystery. So anyway, she goes to London. She moves into a student housing complex. She has a really creepy interaction with a cab driver that tries to hit on her and find out where she lives. So she's wise to it though, which is nice. Like she gets out of the cab and I like that. I was like, okay, she's at least like not naive and like
she's street smart.
She's like, or she just has like a little bit of enough the amount of worry that you should have, right? She has it. So I'm like, okay, that's good. She goes to the student housing, meets her roommate who's a total bitch, like a legitimate capital B. And but I like how like the whole part with the student housing, she's in there and then out of there like within like 10 minutes of screen time, she's moving out of the student housing into her own flat, right?
Yeah.
Which is good. And then that's when the movie kind of really takes off from there. As soon as she gets into her own place, this room she's renting has like a portal or it starts off seeming like the room is the gateway to the 60s, but then eventually later on she enters the 60s from kind of anywhere, and you realize that it's something else tying her to that.
Yes, it's when she goes to sleep, right? She'll go to sleep and she gets pulled into this sort of
that scene.
dreamland, and then
that room is clearly a conduit because of what that room is made of and surrounded by.
Well, I really like where the lights are blinking off and on. That added, like, once it started, I was like, man, this is a really slow way of just building a little kind of unease and some tension into that scene. It's like off,
the red and blue,
and then it just started blinking red, right? Like
and then it's
just like red. I was like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah, but it was a really, really smart way of ramping tension up if you're paying attention without having to like smash you in the face. Like, okay, here comes a scary thing. Are there footprints? No, it's just that ambient kind of unease when you're watching some of those scenes. You're like, oh god, like it's coming, something's coming.
Yeah, and that first scene where she like enters the 1960s and first encounters Sandy's character.
Yeah,
it's so freaking cool.
The way they shot it was amazing.
So well, incredible.
Before that as well, I wanted to point out that she sees the marquee for Thunderbolt, another James Bond reference.
Yes.
Sean Connery Thunderbolt, which is awesome. And I think that is the movie actually where the Vesper was came from.
Yes,
which is pretty neat. So I read a little bit about that opening scene. So she's walking down that stairwell and she's with the coat check boy or whatever.
The Weasley twins.
That's the Weasley twins. Yeah, George and
Fred
and George Weasley. So they hired the two actors, and they filmed it practically with both female actors walking downstairs with a mirror between them, but it's not a real mirror. There's no reflection, and there's twins escorting them. So it looks like it's looked like it's shot and then like stitched together post, but it's actually done practically, which is really cool. There's also another scene where they're dancing, where Anya Taylor-Joy is dancing with Matt Smith's character, and they're tearing up the floor, and then the dance partner switches from Anya Taylor-Smith to Thomasin McKenzie. That was actually done practically as well. Like I saw an overhead where like he spins Anya Taylor around, and then she like legitimately just lets go of his hand, and then as he spins around, Thomasin McKenzie enters the shot on his same hand, and they filmed it in one shot just with and did it with a camera angle, but it looks like one actress disappears behind him, and then the other one appears on the other side of him. It's so cool. If you watch how they filmed it, it looks like such a simple way to film it, but it turned out so magical on the actual end product. Really neat.
It's their interaction between those two characters in this movie is what really kind of, it sells the supernatural, but it sells the creepiness. It sells the whole thing. Like the one part where she's sitting at the bar and she's like telling her to look at her, like, and she doesn't, and she's like, I don't want to look at you. Like, so that's like she's like at a portal back in time to see it, but it's like then she knows she's there and she's trying to smash through the glass and hug her, and then she wakes up. Like all those transitions. But when she goes to sleep or whatever, she goes into the world and comes out, I found were fantastic. Like, they were great. I changed it right a mid-word there.
Fanta-great. You were saying before, you made a comment in your spoiler-free review about all the actors doing really good job, strong performances all the way around. There was one I felt weak performance, and it was John, the love interest at the college, the boy who takes her out on Halloween, some of that. His acting was probably the weakest of the bunch, I thought. There was something about him that just, it was kind of the typical, like, it was the typical, like, kind of nerdy oddball girl, but there's one boy who, like, sees past it and sees the real her, and he also just happens to be just the nicest guy, and, like, I kind of was hoping...
Despite her acting completely insane, he just keeps coming back.
Yeah. That was the only, that was the one...
he got the real short end of the stick. That guy, like poor guy.
Yeah. Well, and so what I thought was going to happen at points in the movie earlier on was that I thought he was going to end up being also an asshole. I almost kind of wanted to see what would happen if that had happened. Like the Matt Smith character came across as a nice guy, and then it turned out he was a monster. Yeah. And I almost thought, like, what if John had, like, obviously maybe even not to the same degree, but just he did something that was like just a young 20, like a teenage boy or young 20-year-old boy dickhead move, trying to get laid or whatever.
Just to like push her closer to the edge.
That's kind of where I thought it was going to go, but then he just was completely naively a super actual nice guy. And it's like I've seen so many movies where they do that, where it's like kind of the nerdy girl, and there's just the perfect guys out there for her, and finds her and is attracted to her and sees through it and just keeps coming after her. And they did that again, so I was kind of thought that was a little tropey. And he was like the least strong actor, I thought. That was one of my only critiques, other than I wish they explored her syndrome a little bit more so I understood the past. Or even like go back to what happened with her mother. Like just go back to a flashback to the mom, that would have been cool.
I wish there was more interaction with the mom, like further in the movie, because that was kind of it, right? You saw her in the beginning, and you see her a little bit at the end as well.
At the end, yeah.
I wish there's more interaction in the middle with her mom, maybe like helping her out or reaching out.
At the end, did maybe I mistook this when it happened? So you see her, did it not seem a little uneasy? Like she was happy that her mom was happy and proud, but it's still like, correct me if I'm wrong, the music wasn't like happy, like super happy and uplifting. It kind of still made me feel like, hey, you're cool, I did it. Are you really here? Or am I still
seeing
like
dead people?
Like, am I still losing it? And I liked the fact that it kind of, maybe just the way I took it, it left it feeling like, it still gave me that sense of unease. Like it accomplished its work.
She still has a problem, and that might lead to something like suicide or something, obviously.
That's kind of what it felt like. Yeah.
But the line, obviously, she says the line that she knows that her mom's proud of her because of her still seeing her mom, right? So, I mean, there's kind of, I took it as like a nice, sweet thing, but yeah, it definitely is there's still a problem there that could lead to, I mean, I hope there's no sequels. I mean, I love that this was an original IP, not a remake of anything. Like, it's just like an original actual movie told originally.
Don't need a sequel. Yeah.
Like, and it should be a one and done. Perfect. Like that's we need more of that being made well.
More creativity.
I liked how, so I almost thought when it switched gears to when she's like spiraling into like real madness, where she's being chased by like the zombie horde, or like the horde of ghosts or undead. She's seeing them from basically the library scene on. I almost felt like the pedal got pushed down too fast. Like it was like a slow ramp up the whole time.
Yeah,
and then there's a point where all of a sudden it goes like full speed. It goes from like a 6 to a 10. And I almost wished it was more of like a 7, 8, 9, 10. It had more of a build up, showing her kind of slip into the throes of madness.
Well,
a little less heavy handedly, I guess, would have been. And I was reading a little bit about it, and that was one of the big critiques people had, was just at the end, it seemed to be a little on the nose for her, being like going into insanity was just a little bit too on the nose. But
trying to wrap the movie up.
It was still, yeah, exactly. And it was still very well done. And I did not see the twist coming at all.
The men, the creepy ghosties, instead of being creepy ghosties, which kind of like felt a little Doctor Who-ish, I feel. Like just a little overdone and a little bit too much. What if instead they were just like slowly throughout the film seen in the background as like regular men, but dressed in 60s garb, and you didn't really notice them, and they would kind of get like closer and closer and closer. I think something like that would have been cool if she saw them the way that she saw Sandy's character and her mom, just as kind of regular people in their time when they died, instead of like,
or maybe as they got closer
demonic
to
ghosts.
Well, their faces were erased because she saw them as not real people, right? That's how she coped while she was being prostituted out, was that she just took away the face, right? But it would have been neat, like you said, if they looked like regular people in the street in 60s garb, and then as they got kind of closer to her, maybe they like slowly shifted towards the more faceless entity or something, just to show that she's slipping more into madness.
Yeah, more of a slow burn.
I never knew why she was able to see that their faces were blocked out, because of what the one woman did with it, but why Ellie could see it as well. Sometimes that always made, I didn't quite get that connection. You know what I mean? Like, so she could see all this stuff.
Well, basically, the woman that killed them, that killed the men, saw them as faceless. So then, so their ghost versions of themselves appeared as faceless, and Ellie just happens to be able to see ghosts. I would assume that anybody that could see ghosts would see those ghosts as faceless.
Okay, as long as it was like
how I took it.
Like they were intertwined. They were intertwined, those two.
Well, I think even if some other random person that could like channel, or a medium came into the picture and could see ghosts, they would also have seen them as faceless, because that's just how they were created by what was her character's name?
Who?
Sandy. Yeah, Sandy / Alex and Alex.
Did you guys catch the part where she's sitting with Matt Smith's character? And it's like switching between Ellie and Sandy, and he calls her Ellie the first time, but it's like a blink and you miss it type of thing. And then he goes, Sandy. And I was like, Dan, I'm like, rewind that. I need to watch that again because I'm pretty sure he just called her Ellie. And it's when like things start kind of slipping more and more. Did you catch that?
I did not catch that.
Yeah, that was Stamp's
There's so
younger
many
self,
like,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Edgar Wright puts so many like cool little things that you don't really catch. Like I think in the beginning, the old lady, like when she mentions like in the summertime, the smells and stuff and having to like close the drains because there's fucking dead bodies in the wall. Like they allude to all these things, but you don't necessarily catch it.
She comments on how there's odors. Yeah, there's odors in the summer, but the odors are actually from the dead bodies that she has buried into the walls and floor of the house, which is insane.
Yeah. I love stuff like that.
She's a very calm.
Terrence Stamp wasn't Matt Smith, right? You know, you're like
he was the cop.
They make Terrence Stamp seem like Matt Smith character up until you realize he was actually the police officer who tried to like save Sandy.
I didn't understand why he was like so creepy to
yeah.
Ellie,
so that's
the whole time.
Why
like I know it was a redirect, but I didn't like that.
Neither did I. And there was one aspect to the last conversation that he has with her, and he's like, I'm not gonna sit with this line of questioning. He's like, if you know you're the cop and you know that she's talking about this and you have the linchpin to this whole thing that and he's like, I'm not so I'm this, and he still storms away. It's like, yeah, but you're in the know. You have all the knowledge and she doesn't. So why don't you just throw her a bone? And then he gets killed by the car. And I was just like, it didn't quite have to go that way. I mean, you could have done that different.
It would have been if they had explained why, like maybe like if they had shown that this detective had been looking for, like maybe he had been a detective who like had failed to like protect all these women. I don't know. It's hard to say. They called him Handsy and he was good with women. And like it really, he was a strange character. I didn't really understand. And like you're right. He was just basically made to be a misdirect, but it didn't really make sense as to why he was misdirected.
Yeah. And then they make
a lot
of
misdirects to like varying degrees of success.
Yeah, and he makes a comment to Ellie. He's like, if you see Alex in her own personal hell. So it's like, so was he in the know that all the bodies were there as well? Like it was weird. Like he warned her about Alex. He warned her about Alex. Yeah, but he makes it's in there, and he refers to it as her own personal hell. So is that because she started off working there and then bought that house, which was a brothel, I guess, at some point in time, or a boarding room, and then she took it over, so she's living in her own hell? Or was he alluding to all the missing bodies? Like it was weird.
Yeah. And what did you guys think about so Sandy as the old lady and how she kind of turned into a villain at the end and like attacked Ellie and John? What did you think of that? Because I didn't love it.
It seemed like a strange turn for her character. I mean, her killing or trying to stab John. I mean, she obviously has a thought about John right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right? She does mention killing him earlier on.
Yeah.
Well, she says no gentleman callers after 8, and that's when Matt Smith's character, I keep forgetting his name in the movie, when he was supposed to like pick her up, right? Yeah. So that made sense that she was kind of like wanting to harm him, but I didn't understand why she wanted to suddenly poison.
Yeah, but
Ellie.
She's obviously like in self-preservation mode, and she'll do anything she can to protect herself, I guess. But then she then like 5 minutes later sacrifices herself, so it's a little bit strange. Yeah, I mean the fact that I could see Anya Taylor-Joy's character turning and like basically starting to stab all these men, and that part of it all made sense, and she ended up being the villain. I also liked how like Thomas and Mackenzie in the end, when they're upstairs and the building's on fire and the fire's raging around them, she like gives her a hug and is like, I understand. Like you think she would continue to be scared of her, but she doesn't. She like almost kind of gives her like a moment of forgiveness.
Yeah, she chooses not to like help all the men that are like, kill her, free us.
Yeah,
she's like, screw you.
But she does get killed, and they do get freed regardless. But she doesn't do it.
They don't deserve redemption from her.
Those were all villains. Like, she's a villain, and unfortunate circumstances, and all those men were like horrible villains. So like, there's no happy ending for any of those groups, which is perfect. Yeah. And then just like you said, give her a hug, and then she's like, to give her some forgiveness, she's like, I understand, thank you, but I have to pay for this. Kind of like I have to, there's a toll coming. But I thought it was really cool when she did the poisoning. Like that was really calm, calculating. I was on board for that. And then she gets a knife. I was like, no, I wanted you to be clever and deviant, and like you're an old lady. You're not going to overpower everybody. And then John just stands there and gets stabbed in the guts and is laying on the floor bleeding. And then the house catches on fire.
Who's going to?
And everybody runs around in the house with her hair. Yeah. She runs through fire and she gets not one burn, like nothing. My mind can't handle that part. I'm like,
I knew it when I was watching it as the fire. I'm like, oh man, Rob's gonna have comments about the fire.
Yeah. But Hollywood,
Yeah, I mean, they could have just had less fire, I guess, but they had to show that it was like gonna be like unescapable by the old lady at some point. I didn't really understand how the poison took effect. Like at first, she was like hit by the poison, and it was like she was too weak to even stand or speak.
So funny.
But then she like breaks through it, I guess, with adrenaline. And
she threw up, and that cures all poison.
Okay,
that cures all poison in your body.
I'm sure there are some poisons that you could get out of your system, but it wouldn't be impacting her if it was still in her stomach. It wouldn't be impacting her and impairing her to your point.
Right.
If it was impairing her, it's beyond throwing it up.
It's in your blood, yeah.
It's in your blood.
It's in your system, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the fact too that Jocasta gave her put something in her drink too on Halloween at the bar. You guys caught that?
Was it? Yeah. And it was it was alleged though, right?
Yeah.
I hated that character
because I was wondering if
a brat. I was like, that was just kick her down a flight of stairs.
But she was she was realistic though, right?
Exactly. They need something to break her down in her actual life as well as the dream life.
Yeah.
No, anyways,
and apparently
overall,
Edgar Wright was going to be called Jocasta if he's a girl.
Yes. Oh yeah. Should we talk some trivia? Because there's some great trivia for this movie.
Yeah, fun facts.
Go for it.
You start because I don't have anything prepared.
Oh, I don't have anything prepared either. I had the Weasley twins. I had Jocasta.
I had the James Bond stuff. Okay, we did touch on a bunch of
James
facts
Bond?
just organically.
I was going to make a comment about the James Bond stuff. It was very interesting.
We were just saying, I don't think Edgar Wright does anything unintentionally, and I think everything has meaning. And I think there's probably still stuff that I haven't caught that reading more about this movie and how he made it would be really interesting.
To achieve the shots of the students walking down the nighttime Soho streets, the crew hid a Steadicam in a bicycle rickshaw taxi, commonly seen around Soho. The road wasn't closed off, and the extras in the shot were unaware that they were in a movie.
I don't that was kind of legal.
Well,
that's not legal though.
It's in the trivia.
You got to pay them, or at least give them consent.
It doesn't say they weren't given. Yeah, it doesn't say they weren't tracked down after the fact. It just says they weren't aware they were in a movie. I guess while it was being shot, right?
Well, that's interesting.
Oh, another interesting fact is that George Miller saw an early screening of this movie and immediately offered Anya Taylor-Joy the role of Furiosa in his upcoming Furiosa movie. For seeing the screening of this movie, and she's got the role. She's going to be Furiosa.
Oh wow! All right.
Stephen King also saw an advanced screening of this movie, and he was so impressed that he tweeted, "I hardly ever rewatched. There's so many good things out there, but this one is special."
I think just the uniqueness of this movie and the concept, which feels like such a rare thing these days. I'm willing to forgive any flaws of this movie because it was something that we've never seen before. It was a new idea.
Yep.
It was so well done.
I really did like. I mean, it's a good movie for me. You guys enjoyed it more than I did, but I thought because it was so unique and so just different, it elevated for me. And then it has its parts that I don't like, but it's I don't want to see another version of this movie. I think it should stand its own and be its own movie.
Yeah. At least it was a unique piece of art. It wasn't just another
100%. Yeah,
another thing of the same thing, and it was a unique piece of art.
It was no Matrix Resurrections.
I haven't seen that yet.
Done well.
Oh, Rob, you're gonna hate it.
No,
you're gonna hate it. It's probably a good thing you weren't there for that review.
Can I find it the same place, Jim? You put something in the link?
Yeah, it's on Video Club Reviews YouTube channel.
Smart ass. I just wanted to say it online. Same place. Can probably find it.
Yes.
Okay,
an interesting thing too is there's the word Carnaby is shown on the bedroom door of Eloise at the beginning of the movie. Rita Tushingham, who played Ellie's grandmother, starred in a movie called Smashing Time, which was mainly on Carnaby Street. Smashing Time has a similar theme to Last Night in Soho as well.
Oh.
So there was a movie called Smashing Time that has a similar theme to this movie that the grandmother was in, and it takes place on Carnaby Street, and they have a sign that says Carnaby on her bedroom door. So
That's
again,
awesome.
just other little things that he likes to throw in. It's just so good.
Everything means something.
There's if anybody goes to the trivia page in IMDb, there's 30 or 40 really interesting pieces of trivia on this movie.
I was honestly shocked that Nick Frost didn't have a cameo, and I actually thought at one point there was one of the men that was one of the Johns.
Oh yeah, I know exactly.
I totally thought it was Nick Frost for a second.
Me as well. I was like, what? And Ashley's like, nope, it's not him. I'm like, okay. I didn't even get to say it. She knew exactly where it was going to go.
Yeah.
Like, no.
All of the men, all the ghosts of the men, if you look on IMDb, are called punters. Punter. Punt, you punter, punter 1, punter 2, punter 3. It's all punter. When I look up the UK definition for punter, just as a person who gambles, I assumed it was gonna be something similar to what we call a John, right?
Oh yeah, and John and Sandy are also terms for like prostitutes and the men who enjoy them, right?
Yeah. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. They're all just punters, punter 1 through 27 or whatever.
27 punters.
There's so many punters on the IMDb page. Half the cast is punters.
So yeah, I think we can all agree this is an awesome movie. Definitely worth a watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially because it didn't perform so well at the box office. So
well, I think people
can support.
Yeah, this is more of a little bit more of an intelligent movie. So people probably just want to go see big flashes and booms and bangs in movie theaters, and this is a little bit more substance to it.
It's not a Michael Bay movie.
It's also a rough time for movies. So
it's a bit of a thinker. It's a bit of a thinker. I would see this over The Matrix Resurrections.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay, something to look forward to then.
Well, I gave this a 9 out of 10. Of course, I'm going to think that. All right.